Quick recap. I had The Fall Guy, Twisters, The Wild Robot, Wicked, The War of the Rohirrim, Furiosa, A Quiet Place Day 1, Gladiator 2, Nosferatu, and Dune Part 2.
And I had Nosferatu, Rebel Ridge, Hitman, Gladiator 2, Wicked, Furiosa, Challengers, The Wild Robot, Conclave, and Dune Part 2 as number 1.
Amazing. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the No Notes Podcast. As always, my name is Morgan.
And I'm JD.
And it is 2025. Every year, we have the saying that we do. It's New Year, new No Notes.
Oh, yeah.
We have upgraded a few things. We got some pretty new mics for each of us. And as always, for this new year, we are going to reminisce on the past in the year of 2024. And we are going to simply go through our top 10 movies of 2024. Talk all about them. We'll just run through our bottom 5 and then deep dive into our top 5 of 2024.
Yes.
JD, how did you feel about the year of 2024 in film?
Honestly, a little mediocre, I thought. There weren't, like in 2023, there were so many movies I was really anticipating and excited about that lived up to the hype, and then movies that surprised me by how much I enjoyed them. And this year, I feel like, I'm always so passionate about the movies I love. There are really only like 4 to 5 movies that I feel really passionate about this year. So making a top 10 was honestly a little challenging, I thought, because there were a lot of movies that I thought were good, but not like, oh my gosh, I love this, or I'm so excited about this. So there was a lot of great, like, fun movies, but there were only a few that I thought really, like, held up against the, like, great movies of years past.
Yeah, I think I was feeling the same going through this list. Like, there were so many fun ones, and there were so many that were easy to be like, definitely not the top 10 that I saw.
Yeah.
But picking top 5 was kind of difficult, where, like, there was a bunch that I liked, but there was none that I was like 100% like, this is 1, 2, 3. It was just like, I really went back and forth a lot on my top 5. So
yeah.
But overall, I had a great time this year. I actually
agree.
kept my AMC pass all year long this year, which is a new one for me. And I used it, and it was part of my New Year's resolution of 2023 to watch 2 movies every month in the theater to make it worth the money that I pay to AMC. Yeah. And I did it. I think I was 1 movie off, but I technically went to see Furiosa. Or I went and saw something twice, but because I watched half of it and then left and then watched the second half the next time. But I count that as part of the convenience I'm paying for.
I think that's absolutely part of the convenience, yeah.
So overall, I had a great time. I think, like, people were almost as excited about movies this year as they were last year. Not quite there, but...
I agree, though. Like, there were some really huge movies. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine was huge. Inside Out 2 was huge. Wicked was huge. And, like, it really drove, like, people to be excited about movies. They were a real big part of the culture, which is always so fun. And I agree, even though there weren't like as many that I was just like, wow, that was incredible, there were still like every movie I saw in the theater, well, most every movie I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I did go see Argyle in theaters, which was a big mistake. But most of the movies were like, even if they weren't like amazing, they were just super fun.
Yeah.
So like a really like interesting movie year and a really cool one. So I'm excited to talk about the best parts of it.
All right, let's get right into it. I'll go first with my number 10 was The Fall Guy, which I know we have differing views on this.
Yeah, I think I'm like one of the only people on earth who didn't like The Fall Guy. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I watched The Fall Guy in theaters, and then me and my husband watched The Fall Guy extended edition, like at home months later, and I loved it just as much the second time, even being longer. I just think it was just fun, and I think fun is the word I'm going to use for a lot of the 2024 movies. And The Fall Guy just really started off that the boulder rolling of just, these were just fun movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my number 10.
Yeah. My number 10 is Nosferatu, which we're going to discuss later more in depth with Morgan's list. So just know it's my number 10.
My number 9 surprised me is Twisters.
I'm surprised this isn't like number one for you.
Honestly, yeah. I did watch this movie 3 times this year. I watched it on the plane and then with my family and then in theaters when it came out. And I am from Oklahoma, so this is a little biased, but I do think it just gives me that like warm home feeling, and it's fun. Like, he's a tornado wrangler on YouTube. Like, it's just fun.
Yeah, I agree. This is a
9.
blast.
I think it's a solid number 9.
It would be my number 11 or 12, I think.
I'll take
like,
it.
It's really close to me to the top 10. It was super fun movie to see in the theaters. I loved all the actors. I loved like all the action sequences.
Yeah.
It was a fun movie.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Number 9.
Number 9 for me is Rebel Ridge, which is a movie I heard about on a podcast. It's a action film from Netflix about a former Marine who is a victim of like illegal asset seizure by the police, which is like a really obscure concept, I know. But then he goes like, it's like a John Wick style revenge movie after he has his money illegally seized by the police. They say it's like, oh, it's drug suspicion, and use it to illegally like keep the money for themselves. And he goes on like a John Wick style like revenge tour, but without like actually killing anyone. It's like really cool, fun conspiracy action movie with like some of the most creative and fun action that I saw all year. So it's like a total like, it's a pretty like dude movie.
Netflix original?
Netflix original.
Okay.
But I had a great time. It was like, again, just like a fun, really creative movie. Like, I haven't seen a lot of action movies like this. No. And I really, really liked it.
I feel like Netflix originals really nail the like classic blockbuster action movies. Like,
they do, yeah.
Time,
like it's like what
not
you
my
would
vibe, but I can appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it like Netflix makes movies like this targeted for people like me who just like want to watch like dumb creative action. And Rebel Ridge was like that, but elevated to like another tier.
Nice,
I thought.
Nice.
So yeah, would recommend for sure.
My number 8 is The Wild Robot, which is in JD's top 5, so we will wait to talk about that one.
My number 8 is Hitman, which is another. It wasn't originally a Netflix original, and then it became a Netflix original.
Oh.
Did you watch Hitman?
No, I have not heard of this one either.
Really? Oh, so this was Glenn Powell's other movie from this year, besides Twisters, and he plays a like nerdy professor who goes undercover, posing as a hitman to like catch people in the act of trying to hire a hitman. It's another like kind of weird premise that like you wouldn't expect, but it turns into this like really fun, compelling romantic movie when he falls for one of the people who he's like, you know, trying to trap in this thing. Classic. And it goes in like all kinds of different directions that you won't expect. And Glenn Powell's super fun and super great in it. I'm becoming a big fan of his. Everyone is. I'm falling in line with the crowd. So again, if you have Netflix, I would for sure recommend Hitman. It's just like a good, fun time. And I think it's like Rebel Ridge, maybe like a step above like your typical like fun, silly romantic action movie. There's more depth to it when like what it has to say about like the nature of how people change and what like romantic relationships do to people, like and so it's fun action with like a little more on its mind, and so I really like it, and Glenn Powell's really, really good in it.
Nice. Number 7 now is Wicked, which, man, I put it kind of low, but we're going to talk about it later because it is much higher on someone else's list.
It's like a step above, because my number 7 is Gladiator 2. Came out the same day as Wicked, which is higher on your list.
Yes.
So, we'll get to...
We really had differing views on
I know, it's so funny. And I feel like, like what might stereotypically be my pick in Gladiator 2 is higher for you.
I know. I'm really surprised on that one.
So we'll dive into Wicked and Gladiator in just a second.
So number 6 for me is The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim.
I'm so bummed I didn't get to see this before we made this video.
Lovely. It's so beautiful. It's like so different, but it definitely gives the vibes of Lord of the Rings. I really went into it though with not a lot of expectations, which I think kind of saved me, because I don't think it's like a masterpiece or like up to par with anything Lord of the Rings, like the original 3.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's awesome animation. I think it's beautiful. I had to go by myself because my husband hates the like 2D animation frame rate vibe. Same with the Spider-Man. Yeah. But I love it. So it was really cool. It had some characters and character moments that were just like epic, and that's kind of all I wanted from it, and it was just exactly what I needed it to be. So a solid number 6.
I feel like a 2D like anime style Lord of the Rings movie is one of the most Morgan like coded films that could have possibly.
It kind of had to be on my list, really.
Honestly, a little surprised this one isn't higher too.
Which is why I went in with lower expectations. I was like, I cannot expect what I want to expect from this, which is sad, but I really enjoyed it. I definitely need to watch it again, but I enjoyed it. So number 6.
Number 6. My number 6 is Wicked.
Of course.
Got married this year. Which is a big life update. But like my wife Mariana's been on the podcast several times. When she was just girlfriend Mariana and then fiance Mariana.
Yeah,
now,
really growing with this podcast.
This podcast has seen me grow from a boyfriend to a fiance to a husband. So one of Mariana's most anticipated movies. I drag her to the movie theater with me all the time. And this is one that she was like, Joshua, we're going to see Wicked in the movie theater. She's a huge fan. And so there is a little bit of bias for me probably in the fact that she loves it so much. And the soundtrack has been playing in our house pretty much nonstop since the movie. Mm-hmm. But I went in with like kind of medium expectations. Like this was not one that I wanted to see when the year started.
Yeah.
And then as she really got excited about it, I started getting excited about it. And I was really blown away by this one and how much I enjoyed it. I thought that from a technical standpoint, they built the most beautiful sets.
Absolutely.
And after years of watching like MCU movies with just like CGI backgrounds, I loved seeing like beautiful, detailed like production design in this movie. And NOSFERATU had a good bit of that too. We'll talk about that later. I loved all the costumes. I loved all of the musical numbers and how well they were choreographed. I thought like all the acting was really, really great. Like the fact that Ariana Grande is getting Oscar buzz, I think is super well deserved. And so I like went in like with, I think because my expectations were so like, this will be like a 6 or a 7. And I ended up having so much fun and being so impressed with how well done everything was from like a technical standpoint. I was like, when I first watched it, I was like, this is maybe going to be like my number 10, maybe a little bit lower. And the more it sat with me and the more I've thought about how well done everything was, the more it's risen to where it's now like number 6. Like, I don't think the 5 movies above this are the only like movies that I watched that came out this year that I truly had like a better time with and that I was like truly more impressed by. So, like, did not expect this at all, but could not have better things to say about Wicked. Like, I loved it.
Yeah, I definitely, same exact experience. Like, was not excited for it. Didn't really know any of the actors. Not a big, like, Ariana Grande fan. And so I was like, maybe I'll watch it. And I really kind of, like, last minute, just because of how much I was seeing online, was like, fine, I'll go watch it. And it was so much fun for all the same reasons you said. It was just great. I knew nothing about Wicked. I watched The Wizard of Oz for the first time right before I went to see it.
For watched the first time. Wow.
Yeah, first time ever, which I loved as well.
Yeah, amazing movie. Of
but
course.
Now I'm like obsessed. It's all over my TikTok. I know everything about Wicked. Yeah, it was a blast. There were a lot of things I didn't like about it, but it was really fun. Way better than I thought. It was just a musical, which like, I feel like every musical to me is always too long. I'm like, not every scene needs to be like 8 minutes long, but there were a lot of moments. I think part of it, we watched it at 9:00 in the morning. It was a 9:15 showing on a Saturday.
That's
and
early.
Me and Jacob were the only ones there. And like, it was just dead silent. So there were some scenes in the film that were just so like long and there like was no music playing or anything. And we were like, is the scene gonna end soon? Like it just keeps going.
Yeah.
But overall, it didn't feel too long. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, we did.
Solid number 7.
We did see this on opening weekend in
Nice.
like a packed movie theater.
I bet that was way more fun.
which I think also contributed to it being like just a really fun experience.
I do think I just get excited when other people get excited about it, and seeing all the merch and everyone who like has been obsessed with it for so long like got me excited enough to enjoy this film.
People who came in wearing like pink and green, like kind of the Barbie thing.
A pleasant surprise, I would say this movie was this year.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not a perfect movie,
Yeah.
but like just no like very few movies like I had more fun with. So
All right, number 5
is the same for us.
Oh,
actually.
yes, it is FURIOSA, a Mad Max saga.
And we did a whole episode about this one.
We did.
Earlier this year.
Yeah, and I feel like I kind of have forgotten it. I feel like I need to watch it again. I was really struggling with my top 5 because so many of these I watched in the beginning of the year and was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I just like this one more because I saw it like last week or because I'm forgetting how much I liked Furiosa. But that landed it at number 5, which was great.
I agree. Like, this is, again, I feel kind of the same way as I feel about Wicked and Gladiator 2, which we'll talk about later, as I feel about Furiosa, where it's like, I don't think this is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things where I'm like, like, I didn't love that, or like, I just didn't feel like it like came together as much as I maybe wanted it to. But in the moment, experiencing the movie, I was having such a blast. I thought the like action scenes were just as creative as Fury Road. I thought the acting was really great, especially from Chris Hemsworth. I feel like it's just like the way that he stages the cars and all of the airplanes and everything jumping and flying around. He tracks action scenes so cohesively. And you feel the sense of scale and spectacle, and you never lose sense of where anyone is. And so he rises the tension very naturally by keeping you invested in everyone's location at all times. And so much of the story is told just through action and motion. There's very little dialogue. And so to be able to rise tension this well, and like hold your attention with just like sound and motion is a skill that I really respect. Yeah. And so I feel like Furiosa was just like super fun and really impressive from that standpoint.
Yeah. Especially as a prequel, I think. It's hard for me to expect a lot from a prequel because they're usually just like long-winded backstory that's like a little bit more boring than the actual story. But this, I think,
which was kind of the case with this
a
movie,
little bit. But I think they did it really well, really clever in a lot of ways, and was just a great time. Also, like, forced me to watch all of the Mad Maxes for the first time, which I'll take a reason to do that. They were amazing.
Yeah.
So.
No, for sure.
Furiosa. Number 4 for me was A Quiet Place Day 1. Did you watch this movie or did you not like this movie?
I watched it and I thought it was only okay. Like,
I'm surprised by that.
Not a top 10 movie.
I loved this movie. I've loved every movie in The Quiet Place. Like, I don't think they're incredible. I don't think they're great horror. I think they're great, like, action, maybe.
I agree. They're definitely more action than horror.
But I do think this one is the best one they've made. And
Really?
again, it's a prequel, but it's like a whole new story. The acting I thought was incredible. I just really loved every single thing about this film. I remember leaving the theater and just being like, that didn't feel like any of the other ones, and it was so good, and I can just like see it growing, and I really, really liked it. Definitely top 4 for me.
Yeah.
Which I was a little surprised about, but the more I kept looking, I was like, I think I need to put it there. Like, it's the one that I most want to watch again, and it also has been so long since I've seen it. But so maybe that would change. But I really, really liked. I was so impressed by the Quiet Place cinematic universe coming out with this one.
It's such a creative franchise, and I loved how like different it felt from the first two, which feel a lot more like action movies, and this was a little more like somber and meditative about life and death. 'Cause, like, Lupita Nyong'o has cancer in the movie, and like I was really compelled by that storyline. Yeah. I don't know, just like for whatever reason, and maybe again, like I did see this one in a theater, but I was by myself and it was like not very packed. It was like the middle of the day, which truly has some effect on it. So I was just like, I walked out of the thing. That was like well made, but it didn't just like grab me as much.
Yeah. I think it was interesting because as a prequel, it didn't make the world bigger. It almost went smaller.
Yeah.
I think that's what I loved so much about it.
I know. And like
just clever.
Hearing you talk about it, like that all sounds on paper like stuff that I really value. So I'm like, maybe I should check this one out again, because they basically focused on 2 characters for the entire movie. And
the cat.
And the cat.
3 characters.
Of course. Love the cat. Cat dad myself. Love the cats. Like in the way it and again, because it's a Quiet Place movie, it had to tell story through like action and motion and score, and like used very little dialogue to build this relationship naturally between Lupita Nyong'o and Eddie from Stranger Things. And like I remember like thinking that was all very well done. I'm like, maybe I want to go back and watch this one. You're like,
yeah. So official review of A Quiet Place Day 1 is it deserves a rewatch.
Yeah, I'd say so.
What is your number 4?
Challengers. This movie is electric. Did you watch this one?
I have zero interest in ever watching this movie. I saw one trailer and immediately was like, I'm never putting that into my brain. No, thank you.
Yeah, it is.
I did hear it was great. So please tell me why you think
it's like a dopamine hit of a movie. It's definitely like be aware of what you're watching. It's like it's a love triangle. It's like kind of like steamy and romantic. It's not like, graphic or anything, but it is like pretty like just intense in the interpersonal relationship. But there's only 3 characters. It's Zendaya, her husband, and her ex-boyfriend, who is the ex-best friend of her husband. And it all revolves around this one tennis match, and it goes down like these different backstory trails. And it is like, but it's the compelling interpersonal drama between these 3 characters is so well fleshed out. All of the acting performances are really excellent. And it just builds and builds through this incredible score that I've been listening to since I saw the movie. And it like grows so gradually and builds such like palpable drama over like petty interpersonal conflict. And it leads to this like incredible like finish of like the tennis match like that's been going on the whole movie. But as it slowly reveals more and more layers of the backstory, as the tennis match is going on, by the time you get to the end of the tennis match and see like the loaded personal drama between these 2 guys and between Zendaya, she's watching them like play, it just is so dramatic and intense. And I walked out of the movie theater just being like, wow, like that, like, and that high has stuck with me. I feel like my top 4 are the only movies from this year that I'm going to walk away with and being like, those were like classics that I'm gonna want to revisit, that like get me pumped and excited. And Challengers just did that for me. Like I feel like it had such a great screenplay and like weaved these narratives together in such compelling ways. I just had so much fun with it. And I feel like, again, like that theme of fun, but there's that extra layer of of drama to it. And I think it had just like such well developed characters that it made it also worth it.
I may or may not watch it in the future.
Yeah. I'd like soft recommend it. Like, I don't know. It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like Mariana and I saw it together and she was like, it was good, but like, but it worked for me.
Yeah. Most people who I have talked to enjoyed it to some level. So
yeah, I don't know. Like I may be a little bit higher on it than a lot of people are, but I just like, yeah, I really liked this one.
All right. We're into the top 3. My number 3, which I'm so surprised about, Gladiator 2.
Yeah, my number 7.
Another movie that I was like, I'm probably not going to go watch it. Like, it's just Gladiator, but with Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound bad, but like, do I really need to spend my time? And then I went and saw it, again, by myself in the middle of the day, because that's like my new thing. I just go Saturday mornings. I loved it. Every single moment, again, just fun. It was so fun. I like every moment. I was like, oh, like it's happening. Like man, I hate to say it. I love violence in movies. It really gets me hype. I think it's like so fun when people do it in really clever, interesting ways that are like tell you so much about the character and how they feel about people. And I think this just absolutely nailed it. It gave all the same feelings that Gladiator did, which I don't love the first Gladiator. I haven't seen it in a very long time. I need to rewatch it. But I remember being like, oh, that was cool. But Gladiator 2 really, really did it for me. I thought it was so interesting, so fun. Like all the characters were just so dramatic in the best way. And like, I just love I love a sword fight. It's not medieval, but I love a sword fight. And I just really liked it. I thought all the characters were really interesting together, and it showed so well in the action and in all of the fighting. And like, who doesn't love seeing a coliseum like filled with water and them like fighting sharks like that? Every moment I was like they needed to do that, and they did. Like somebody had to, and it was fun.
That's what my thing is. Like I always talk about the Tom Holland Uncharted movie. Yeah. And you've heard me say it before, because it's just like dumb fun, but it's like the coolest action set piece. And when Gladiator 2, when they fill the Coliseum with water and there's sharks and they're like fighting on these boats, I am so cool. Locked in. It is like so good, and I feel like the action scenes were definitely the best part of this. And Denzel Washington is giving like, I think he might like win another Oscar. He is going crazy in this movie in a really cool way. I feel like this one was like from an action standpoint, like incredible, like probably like second best movie of the year. I may have been unfairly comparing it to the first Gladiator, which in my mind, like the first Gladiator is like a deeply intelligent and thoughtful movie about, you know, power and all these things. And Gladiator 2 is just like,
I didn't watch it before going to see this one, is I was like, it's gonna ruin it for me. I'm just gonna go watch the second one.
Yeah, and so I think that's the way to do it, because the second one is just like fun, creative action spectacle, and it's such a blast. Like it is. I feel like I will happily revisit this and enjoy it a lot.
Which I also don't think that was the intention. Like there is a very serious like storyline underneath this, but they just don't really like spend a lot of time building it out.
I feel like it like kind of fell flat, especially compared to the action, which is so good.
Yeah.
That like whatever they were trying to do with like Denzel's like storyline, where he's like trying to grab power, and like Paul Mescal has to stand up against him, and it just kind of,
it felt very separate.
Yeah,
which is kind of necessary, because I'm like, the two main people like are in prison, and then they really didn't have that much interaction. Yeah, and that's kind of like what everything was leading to. I don't think they built up the characters' interactions well, like between him and the mom, or him and just the king, like anyone. I think it all was just like focused on the action, which was great, and I loved it for that. And that's all I really wanted, and there was just enough little like sappy story behind it that I cared a little bit more about the action, and I was so happy with it. I really enjoyed it. Which again, I watched it recently, and that might be the only reason it's in the top 5, but I loved it. I think it deserves top 3 for me this year.
I feel good about it being at number 7, because it's like it's honestly, and we'll talk about this in just a second, how I feel about Nosferatu as well. It's like you did like all of the like technical things and like so well, but I was really like hoping there would be more story to latch onto, and I felt like the story was just like kind of okay. Like very like surface level in Gladiator 2, which is fine. I think it's probably a victim of my own expectations. And so Gladiator 2 is super fun. Big fan. My number 3 is The Wild Robot, which was your number 8. Number 8. And so, dude, I'm a freaking sucker for this like Spider-Verse style of animation. It gets me every time. The Wild Robot, very similar to it. That like 2D frame rate, 3D like combo. I think it looks beautiful, but this has the most like vibrant and luscious backgrounds.
It's beautiful.
Every frame is like a painting. Like, and I mean that earnestly. It is so detailed and so intricate and so like lush and like full. All of the characters I think are really fun and interesting. It's like 3 really main characters and then a bunch of silly, goofy, funny side characters. The robot lands on this island, learns to speak animal language, befriends a fox voiced by Pedro Pascal, showing up on the list again, and they kind of raise this orphaned baby goose and teach him to fly. And I was just so locked in to the like maternal storyline and everything this had to say about, I think, like parenthood and the nature of relationships and found family. I think all of those messages were very compelling. There was like an environmental message that I thought was very like subtly incorporated and very well done. My only flaw with this movie is like there's like one scene where it like randomly becomes an action movie and then it goes right back to being this like sweet, earnest found family story. And so I was like it is a little jarring, but for the most part, it is one of the most like earnest and fun and sweet, like family oriented stories of the year. And it's maybe the most beautiful movie of the year as well. And I just like walked away from this on such a high, like as well. Like that's what I'm going to say about all my top 4 is like, I just walked away from this being like, wow, movies.
Yeah, I loved this one. It is absolutely beautiful. It definitely deserves top 10. I think it's just not my kind of movie. I was like, it was cute. Like, if I was watching it with like my future children, maybe I would have loved it more. But like, just for me, like going out, I'm like, like it was cute, I guess. I don't know. I feel like maybe the story for me was lacking a little bit, where it was just kind of so like we get it. I don't know. I just kept going back and forth of like, oh, that's really cute. And then I was like, oh, it's going to be cute again in 10 minutes and even more. And, it's just not my favorite thing, but I really loved it. Like I would watch it probably 10 more times. So don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. It's incredible. I will watch it 100 more times. Yeah. Just a solid number 8 for me.
Yeah.
I also feel like, I don't know. I feel like I was comparing it to WALL-E the whole time. Where I was like, it's this robot.
It treads similar ground to WALL-E, I'd say.
But yeah, loved it. The Wild Robot.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me is NOSFERATU.
Yeah.
I almost didn't go watch this because I was like, it's Christmas. I don't want to watch a vampire movie right now. But I forced myself to just so I could talk about it because I knew it was going to be in my top 10. The only reference I had to Nosferatu before going to see this was the SpongeBob episode where the hash slinging slasher, and that was enough for me to be like, I'm gonna go watch this movie. Also, I love vampires. Vampires are my favorite thing anyone has ever made a movie about. I think every movie should have a vampire in it. So I watched the original Nosferatu the morning before I went to go see the new one, and I absolutely loved it. It was so, I just loved everything about it. It was like so silly because it's like old and in black and white, and there were so many like little moments that I was like, this is hysterical, that like this is what horror was. But
100
also,
years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like
it was just so, I don't know, it's like, it's not cute, but to me, I'm like, this was just so cute. Like these people were just scared of this thing, and like it was such an interesting take on like a monster. I just loved it. So, but 2024 Nosferatu, loved so much, and I had low expectations, and I don't think I needed them because I thought every single ounce of this was perfect. It was beautiful. The acting was incredible. It like changed what was just a simple like story about the vampire like coming and just trying to like kill people, and it like had a little bit of connection in the original, like, but this one is so much more about infatuation, and like he is targeting like this woman, and it's much more of a personal story, and I think they did everything right. Robert Eggers, of course, like slays a atmospheric horror film, and this just does it so well. It opening and just being like black, and then like half the time you're like getting the black and white, like it's not black and white, but you know, it like feels like it is. It's like that like blue tone,
moonlight, like lighting.
Yeah. I just think he did the atmosphere perfect, which like no one's surprised by that. And I just loved the story. I think Willem Dafoe's character was hilarious, like in
ultimate Willem Dafoe role,
the best way. It was so good. Like it really feels like these were like written for these people. I think Lily Rose Depp did incredible. It was so intense. It was so gross. I mean, there were moments like I was gagging a little bit. There's just a lot of blood intake in general in this movie. It really got to me. But like, I think it also, as much as it was like terrifying and like maybe wouldn't recommend it to people who don't watch horror and like enjoy these things, like know what you're watching, of course. But for those things, it was just as much like about love. And I think the love between the two main characters and their friends who had the family with the daughters, like I think they showed that love in such real ways for it being so like what we're not used to seeing and like in a different time period and in this horror movie. And it just wasn't like the classic you see, but like you could just feel the love for them, and it made like every horror part hurt more. I just that's really
well said. I agree.
Really loved this movie. And then Willem Dafoe's character running around talking about like, we've come so far in our science that we've forgotten what evil is, and like we have to understand it to be able to defeat it. And it just like, I feel like that one scene, I don't know the quote exactly, I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it, but that whenever they're basically saying like, you're crazy, it's not like a devil, and Willem Dafoe is like, we have forgotten what evil is, like how are we supposed to defeat it, like that whole monologue thing that he does is the reason I love horror. Like, I think that sums it up so well. I just thought it was beautiful. Every line that was said in that film felt like a poem. I think it was written so well. Some of the like main story parts maybe weren't my favorite. Like, it's just kind of a weird like back and forth, and the evil guy like has a reason, but I don't know. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty darn close, and I just thought it was so cool. And there were so many beautiful, gory shots. The last shot of that film, like,
oh yeah,
ingrained in my brain, like
never leaving.
Beautiful, like, oh, it's so good. What did you think of Nosferatu?
I think you summed it up really well, honestly. I think again, like I said with Gladiator 2, I think I've made a fallen victim to my own high expectations. Because I love Robert Eggers. The Witch and The Northman are like two of my favorite movies the last couple of years.
I also watched The Witch for the first time this year.
Yeah, super good.
Oh,
Witch is like the ultimate feel bad movie of all time, but it's really fantastic. Like it's better than Midsommar to me, doing like the same thing that Midsommar tries to do. Yeah. And I loved it from like a technical perspective. I think it was one of the most beautifully, most like creatively shot movies of the year for sure. The way that went back and forth from like moonlighting to daylighting, everything being lit by fire and by candles. Like it didn't feel like there were any like keys or fill lights were gone. It was everything was like looked so naturalistic. The attention to detail in all the sets, the attention to detail in how Nosferatu looks, like is so cool. The makeup and everything next level. Like the main actor is unrecognizable, truly. And I feel like all of the acting was really fantastic. Like Lily Rose Depp, like Oscar nominee win. Like so like physically committed, and also like just like is so earnest and emotional in like ways that like should be over the top but feel like perfectly restrained. And then you have like this great story where like this they're a husband and wife, and like their love for each other, like I kept expecting, for whatever reason, because it's a Robert Eggers movie, like I kept expecting like one of them to like fail as like a husband or wife, and they never do. Like their love for each other is the true through line of the movie, and their like faithfulness to each other was, I thought, so fantastic. And what it was like, and the like the give and take there, maybe I'm saying it's because I was recently got married, but like I just thought that was really nicely done. I just felt like for whatever reason, like the back and forth nature of it like started to grate on me a little bit, which is like, I don't know, it was just like I feel like there was like too much fluff, and as I was watching it, that I like started kind of falling out of the movie. But like for the most part, like one of the most beautiful movies of the year, like such creative like camera work and production design and costumes are so detailed, like classic Robert Eggers. Everything is going to be so meticulous. I think it was just like, I don't know, like maybe I would have liked it more if it was shorter, but and I agree too with what you said. It's like, you know, like he was like, we've gotten so far in science that we've forgotten that there are like spiritual forces that exist or whatever, and it's like that's a compelling idea for a movie, and having to understand evil in order to defeat it is a valid like argument and very interesting to think about. So like a great movie. Maybe it could have been a couple spots higher on my list, but I don't know. It didn't like.
I do think it does focus on almost like too many characters, which is like part of the reason it's good, but it's like in the original, which is very different from this, which maybe is not a good comparison, but it's like really only about the two main people. They build up this like friendship that they have with this other couple and their children, and they take forever kind of building that up, and you're like, we get it, they're friends. And then introducing Willem Dafoe so late in the game. And then he kind of like goes really high up, and then like really he was just all over the place, like written wise. I think he acted it perfectly, but it definitely was not. There was a lot of things that I was like, I'm kind of like all over the place. Don't know if I would like it as much on a second time, but for how beautiful it was, I think it was the most unique movie I watched this year, and that always gives bonus points in my mind. So
I think that's fair.
That's why it gets so high up. And I love horror, and I love vampires, so I
agree. Vampires is one of my favorite. Like, and vampire movies are always like, I'm gonna go see a vampire movie. I just love vampires. I always have. And Robert Eggers is like, he's him. He's got it. I will watch whatever Robert Eggers makes at this point. My number 2 is Conclave. Which you've not seen or heard of.
No.
You said. So this is it's like a conspiracy thriller about the election of the next pope. the Pope dies, and Ray Fiennes from the Grand Budapest Hotel and The Menu, Lord Voldemort, he plays the dean of the cardinals who has to supervise the election of the next pope. And so I'd heard this was a really good movie from some podcasts I'd listen to, like a good conspiracy thriller. And then what I actually saw in the movie was one of the most thoughtful and intelligent movies about faith and doubt and our relationship to the church as an institution that I've ever seen. I've seen it twice now, and I just feel like it is it's very beautiful. It's filmed in Italy, and they're in all these gorgeous buildings, and it has great cinematography.
Based on a true story?
This is based on a fictional novel. Okay. So it's and it plays like a conspiracy thriller for most of it, but then in the background there's every cardinal, every priest has all these secrets that slowly get revealed over the course of the movie. It's very compelling. And then it's just a very well done movie. It's the director of the All Quiet on the Western Front from a couple years ago, the German one. He directed it. And so it's really fantastic from that perspective, but then also has this really rich subtext or text about the nature of faith. And I thought it was just so well done and so excellently weaved into the story. This is another one, walking out, I was 5 stars. This is what movies can do. They can make you think and challenge you and be beautiful and be interesting and compelling all at the same time. So I would highly recommend Conclave to anybody.
Sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
I'm sold.
Okay, great.
Also sounds really a unique way to tell that kind of story.
It is. Yeah. It's a weird mix of Jason Bourne and Silence. I don't know.
Interesting.
And then the main guy is the chef from The Menu.
Love that.
Stanley Tucci's in it. For all the Tucci gang members out there, that's how I sold Mariana on going to see it.
Nice. All right, and number 1. Last but not least, last but most is Dune Part 2 for both of us.
How could it be anything but Dune Part 2? We did a whole episode on this one too, didn't we?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Dune Part 2, but...
You have anything else new you want to add about Dune?
I'm surprised I haven't seen it again already. I really wanted to watch it again before the end of the year, but it's just incredible. It's just so good. I think 2 weeks ago randomly was telling someone about it, and I think I talked for 30 minutes and was they probably did not care that much about what Dune Part 2 is about.
I feel all the things that I've said about that we said about Nosferatu and Wicked and Gladiator and Conclave could all be applied to Dune.
Yeah.
It is
just the perfect version of everything.
It's what movies
so big
are for. Yeah. And it has such a great handle on scale. I think it's the perfectly paced movie. I think it is the sets and the costumes are beautiful. I think the cinematography is beautiful. I think the score is awesome. I think every actor is doing a great job, especially Austin Butler. I think that the action is super well choreographed, and I think the story is so perfectly measured and well told. The way it builds up, and you feel this sense of dread coming and building, and you're hoping against hope that it's not going to turn out the way that it's going to turn out. And it is the most perfectly measured from a story perspective, and then is also an epic huge scale blockbuster, the movie of the year.
Yeah, easy. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Okay.
That was our top 10 movies. Quick recap. I had The Fall Guy, Twisters, The Wild Robot, Wicked, The War of the Rohirrim, Furiosa, A Quiet Place Day 1, Gladiator 2, Nosferatu, and Dune Part 2.
And I had Nosferatu, Rebel Ridge, Hitman, Gladiator 2, Wicked, Furiosa, Challengers, The Wild Robot, Conclave, and Dune Part 2 as number 1.
Amazing. Thank you for listening. I hope you had a wonderful 2024 year in movies. We are so excited for 2025. Our next episode will be all about what we're looking forward to in 2025. So come back for that one. We will be posting on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere, a poll to see which one of us you think has a better taste in movies and the best top 10 list for 2024. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.